The song page is where most of us are going to be spending the bulk of our time, so let's go ahead and take a few minutes to become familiar with it, as well as where we can access all of the tools that we may need when we're working on a song or a mixing project. So as we've seen, to create a song, we can just click on create a new song, and then we'll be presented with the dialog here where we can go ahead and put a song name in. I'm just going to call this song page. We can choose a location. I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop. Select that there, select folder. Now we can make certain selections for our sample rate, bit depth, time base, and so on here. So this is where you'd want to go ahead and get these set up for your song, whatever you'd like to use, just by clicking on the arrow here. I'm going to leave this at 48 and 24 bit. And also take notice of the stretch audio files to song tempo. I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and we are taken to the song page. Now, if you're new to Studio One, it may seem like there's a lot going on and you may be overwhelmed, but by the end of this section, you should feel a lot more comfortable with finding your way around. So let's go ahead and get started with the center area here. This is the Arrange view, and this is going to be the container, so to speak, for all of our audio and MIDI parts that we've recorded or brought in, any samples that we've brought in or loops. They will all be displayed here, and we can edit and arrange from this area. Now over to the right we have the browser here, and this is the beginning for everything. So you can access all of your instruments, effects, your loops, any third-party audio samples, your system directory from this browser here. So we can see links to instruments, effects, loops, files, cloud, and so on. These tie in with the tabs up above, so if I click Effects, we're taken to that Effects tab, but we can just click up above to access the various tabs, like so. Now we can show and hide the browser by clicking on Browse below here. We could also press F5 to show or hide, and next to the Browse button we have the Mix button to access the mix console. So if I click, we open that up. I could also press F3 on the QWERTY keyboard using that function key. And it is pretty empty at the moment because we don't have any instruments or audio tracks within our song. I'll go ahead and press F3 to close that down. And then next we have Edit. This will allow us access to the editor. And we can also use F2 to show or hide that. Now the final main area would be the inspector, and we can see this eye button. If I click that, we can access the inspector. We could also use F4 on our keyboard. Now let's go ahead and bring an audio file in just so that we have something going on here. I'll drag this into the Arrange view, and pretty much everything is drag and drop within Studio One, whether it's an audio sample or a loop or a VST instrument or effect. Now I'll go ahead and close out the browser. Now as we brought that in, Studio One did create an audio track for our loop, and we can go ahead and adjust its size by clicking on the border and dragging up or down. We also have a control for our track size down below here. And this area here would be considered the track column, so you can highlight and choose any tracks and perform different actions here, like choosing an input source or changing the level here by clicking. We can arm for record and monitoring up above here, as well as mute and solo are accessible here. At the top of our track column, we have a variety of tools that we can access here. So this is going to show us our track list, and if you have a very busy song with a high track count and a lot going on, this is going to give you a broad overview of all of the tracks within your song, and you can show and hide from here and access the envelopes and other information about what's going on with your song. We can just hide that by clicking on that button again. And we've seen that we can access the inspector here. Next to that, we can change our tracks to show automation information by clicking on that button. We can show our marker track. And next to that, we have our arranger track, chord track, our tempo track for making adjustments to the song tempo throughout. And then finally, we have this plus button where we can access the Add Tracks dialog, where we can add audio, instrument, automation, or folder tracks. I'll go ahead and cancel that out. And just know that we can press T on the QWERTY keyboard to access that same Add Tracks dialog at any time. I'll cancel out. Up at the very top, we have our tools, and these are married to the number keys on our QWERTY keyboard. So number 1 is the Smart Arrow tool, 2 is the Range tool, 3 is the Split tool, 4 is the Erase tool, and so on. And we're going to go into more detail on the various tools and their uses in a later section. I'll press 1 to return to the arrow tool. And then here we have a question mark where we can turn on an info view area. So as we hover in different areas of our song, it will provide tips about what could be accomplished wherever you're at. I'll go ahead and hide that. And then we have a bend panel for stretching and compressing our events, our audio or MIDI or audio events, as well as adding slice markers or bend markers so that we can slice up an audio event by its transients, for instance. I'll go ahead and close that out. And we next have a strip silence panel where we can strip out quiet areas of our audio events based on our settings here. We then have a full quantize panel here, and this ties into the one near the center here. They're basically the same, it's just this is quick access. But if I go ahead and open that up, right now we can see we're on 16th notes within our ruler and our grid. If I change that to quarter notes, we can see we change here. Our arrange view opens up as well as the ruler. Now we have a panel for managing and accessing our macros. We then have IQ, which is input quantized. So whenever this is active, when we're recording a MIDI part, it will be quantized based on whatever we have our value set here. Now we have snap, toggle on and off with this button here. We can use N on our QWERTY keyboard. We then have ripple edit that we can turn on. We have auto scroll, cursor follows edit position, and then we can access a scratch pad by clicking on this button. So we can actually drag events over to this area if we'd like to store them or experiment with different ideas in this area. I'll go ahead and click to hide that. We can access our video player here. So if we'd like to compose to video. And of course, in the upper right, we have our start, song, and project buttons so that we can access any other songs that may be open or projects, or we could click the start to come back to the start page. But let's come back to our song, and we'll finish up with just at the bottom, we have our transport bar. And this is going to have the standard stop, play, record, as well as activating our loop with this button here, our left and right loop locators, our song tempo, meters for our master out, and an area for changing whether our master out is going to be stereo or mono. And we'll take a closer look at the transport bar in a later section. So this has been a look at the song page, and I hope you're feeling more comfortable about finding your way around and accessing the various tools that are contained here.